Welcome to the Eat and Drink Real Estate Podcast. You're here with Mondays with Laxmi. I'm Laxmi, your weekly real estate podcast host. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Bob Fioretti himself.
Good to be here. Thank you very much. And I'm going to enjoy the afternoon and this show especially.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come to this podcast. Now, I've got to tell you, you probably don't know this, but I licked the stamps on the envelopes because, we didn't have, I don't remember if they had those then, but I did remember licking some of your, campaign materials when you ran for alderman. That was my law school experience. I've been following you as you rose in your career. At that time, I was a bleeding Democrat. You were running as a Democrat, and I happily, contributed. Now I'm an independent, leaning. I'm not sure which way. And again, I look to people, my superiors like yourself, to guide me. So I was hoping that you could help me out with one of the most contentious topics in Illinois today. Well, actually, I'm going to do two, but you know what we're all talking about. Real estate taxes.
Yeah,
help me out, Bob.
I have to tell you right off the bat.
Help me understand, explain to my clients why they're going bankrupt paying our real estate taxes.
I'm hearing it across, especially the southern suburbs. Some of the suburbs, the taxes have gone up 120, 127%. It has done the same thing in the city, but people are saying, and when I say that it's gone up that amount, Dixmoor, Harvey, there's over, I think, 20 or 30 suburbs that have gone up over 100%. But in those suburbs, Phoenix, Dixmoor, some people are paying 10% of their median income towards paying off their real estate taxes.
It's almost like renting.
The government owns your house.
Actually, it is.
The government owns your house. And what I plan on doing, actually, and the state's attorney has a big role in the way property taxes are. Maybe a lot of your viewers may not understand the whole process, but it seems like there are 300,000 appeals a year. And I have talked to people on the Board of Review commissioners who have said to me that, well, Bob, they all think we're heroes. We lower everybody's taxes. Well, then when they lower that, somebody else has to pay for it in those suburbs and villages and towns. So we've got a real mess on our hands. And when you have the number of employees, I've heard different numbers in the Board of Review, but those that handle the appeal themselves say there's 120 or so, and that may be high. How much time can you spend on 300,000 appeals that are coming to you, and you're going to say yes or no, boom, boom, just stamping out the door? I mean, we are the only county in the nation that does it this way, and part of the corrupt political practice that we see is because, and it's made the Democratic Party very rich, are the insiders. So who's protecting the little guy? And I say that, who's looking out for them? We know that comment that I said from the Board of Commissioners, they're all Democrats. And if you don't like it, then you have to hire an appraiser that's really somebody that's in the cottage industry, and you have to find a way to navigate the system to appeal your taxes again. So it gets to be very costly, time-consuming, and a real pain
I hate to interrupt you for a minute, Bob, because you just made me think of something. And this is not related to real estate per se. However, it is related to, for the viewers out there, we started the podcast late. So Mr. Fioretti is being very gracious in accommodating me running in late. And I was late because I had an emergency Chapter 11 problem. And the reason I bring this up, Ms. Bob, is that one of the biggest reasons that particular property was in a Chapter 11 in the first place was because of insanely high development costs that came from basically the political, opposition. So when you talk about the corruption in the real estate property tax situation, could you also, not too much because I think it's another topic for another day, but could you also briefly talk about the other areas of corruption that may or may not exist? Because we want informed consumers and taxpayers.
And I see the problem. It starts off if you're going to do a zoning change. So often you have to go see the alderman in the city of Chicago. Things are different in a lot of the suburbs. I know that economic development is different in the way things can happen in the suburbs, but you have to see the alderman. And for some reason, the mentality of everyone is, I have to give the alderman a contribution. And that's the beginning of how this all happens. Whether it's a zoning change, a permit for a sign, some minor matter, here's your contribution for your campaign. That's why when I ran for alderman, even before, as I was running, I came across one of the more powerful aldermen. We were at a wedding together, and I knew him for years on other things. And somehow he said, Bob, I heard that you're not going to take money from developers. Well, that's okay for a campaign slogan, but when you get in office, you can start doing it. I said, no, I won't. When I make a commitment to my constituents, I'm going to live by that. And I did the whole time. In my first year in office, I returned over $100,000 in developer contributions. So, and a lot of the problems that we see and people go into jail are all over the developer access and excess. So
back to the real estate property taxes that we were talking about. I know I interrupted you. I hope we can pick up where we interrupted. We were talking about the corruption and, that happens from a lot of the insiders.
Well, one of the insiders is, today is what, the 23rd or 22nd of September? 23rd. One of them's going to jail today. And I have to say, the deals that were trying to be cut on the council floor and what they were doing, offering other attorneys, if you give me certain types of real estate, I'll split you in on the fees. When we as aldermen vote on property taxes increases, well, we shouldn't be doing anything in that area. I thought if not legally it was wrong, it was ethically wrong. So, and like I said, the alderman is on his way to jail today.
Yeah, I always, I remember in law school, one of my classes, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act professor, I asked him this, we were just talking, he looked at all of the, our non-U.S. based lawyers in the room. I'm one of them. Well, I am here, obviously, but I come from India, right? So he was looking at all of us and says, if you think corruption is in your country, no.
Well, Chicago and the state and the county have been, Chicago, the number one city in America with the highest corruption rate. The hidden costs of corruption are overwhelming. When you said, as you started off your question on what happens, the problem gets to be that it delays construction, delays all sorts of things.
Delays our podcast.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because my Chapter 11 case was dismissed. So.
All right. Well, that's
which means, as an attorney, that it unfortunately starts other ball rolling, which means,
the domino effect.
The domino effect. And,
yes.
And so, yeah.
I mean, somehow people in Chicago have to stand up and fight this. And if you're not satisfied with your property taxes, you have to appeal. And I say, see, the Democratic Party and the insiders became all very enriched. They still have the same thing. Some of the state senators, state reps are doing property taxes. I don't know about state reps, but I know definitely some state senators are. And if the downstate commercial, the taxes are this high, and you get the reduction they get to take a third of that amount. And we're not talking a few $1,000s, a few $100s. We're talking millions of dollars. And then if you're one of the big domos, because of the high assessment and you're the attorney handling that and you're an elected official, well, you go to that person's fundraiser to make sure that they have more money and can represent you adequately, even though, again, it's all pretty laid out on what needs to be done. I've seen a number of times when people try to help people out there, and so much, it's such a confusing course that we go through that I've always said, people should stand out there, have a computer. Law school students, are you a veteran? You get an exemption. Are you a senior? You get an exemption. Are you disabled? You get an exemption. To make sure that you have all that. And we have to inform the public, especially in some of the neighborhoods that don't have it, and people get to pass out money to help them out, but it doesn't help them on the next time that they're there. So we need to educate the public, but again, the public has to be pretty ticked off, because I've been part of lately a series of seminars. The first one just started in the western suburb, and the southern suburb. We have another one set, I think, October 5th, and we're going to do several on how the whole system is essentially corrupt. There were no. I'm
going to interrupt you for a second, but for our viewers out there, somewhere around here, we're going to be putting a link that details all the information that Bob's talking about. Go and go to those events, educate yourself, because it's not just, it's not just your right to vote. It's also your money. It is your pocketbook at the end of the day. And, I always say, if you want changes, pay for it. It's a pay-to-play operation. If you own a real estate, even if it's one of those things that I've realized. It's not just if you own the property. A lot of renters think that I don't own. I don't have to worry about real estate taxes. But please explain to me why that is a big fallacy.
I keep thinking about selling my house, my wife and I, on the West Loop, and then just renting. And the rental market is even I'm ups and downs, but the problem is when taxes get assessed on the building, the renter pays for it proportionally, or maybe more than proportionally, and that gets to be the problem. So everybody pays for this type of corruption.
No landlord is going to be able to sustain himself if he pays the real estate property taxes out of his pocket, right?
And that's all basic the repairs economic and everything else. Owning a home owning a rental building is a lot of work, no matter what you say or what I hear out there in the market.
And that's besides what you're talking about, what the county wants you to do or the city wants you to do. Morally, it takes a lot of effort to maintain a building.
Probably at a minimum, almost every house should be repainted every few years, 3 to 5, 7, if you want to update your house, make it look modern or so contemporary, you have to spend a lot of money then, and doing that always requires a lot of capital. And then when you do that, sometimes they know that you're doing it, they reassess you, and your taxes go on up. It's an endless cycle.
It's an endless cycle.
So
and a lot of times,
I have to tell you, a woman just said to me, "Here's my property tax bill. It went down." I said, "Oh my goodness, it did?" "Yeah, it's my other home in Naples, Florida." So, be that as it may, and it was only from what I saw on the pictures, I'm like, "Oh, is this a gorgeous home?" And it went from 4,300 down to 3,900 or so. So yeah, you get the idea.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions only because I am right now basically a student of real estate and real estate taxes in general, and the only thing I can understand is my own journey through to today, and all the clients I've helped over the years, basically not helped, frankly, through the years, through my journey to today. I started out as a bankruptcy attorney. I did in 2008 is when I started my practice.
What a time to start.
When I started my practice, I started out as a bankruptcy attorney. I helped consumers. And a lot of the work that I did was at that time, and I was a law clerk before I started as an attorney. And so 2005, when the height of the market was, everybody, if you had a pulse, you had a home, you had a mortgage. All the people who bought the property during that period and refinanced during their Chapter 13s, every single one of them fell apart when I was an attorney. So I saw the clients as a law clerk, again as an attorney, and it broke my heart. And absolutely. I can tell you. And then, okay, I'm gonna move this scale forward. From 2012 onwards, I was working at another firm, doing a lot of their tax work. Used to work for a CPA, and did a lot of other bankruptcy work and tax work, and a lot of those people were getting, they were getting out of their houses, basically, because you had these people who got the amount of time extension, from 2008 through 2012. They were in the foreclosure market. They got to stay extra during, they got their extension during the ridiculous foreclosure process that we have in Illinois. And then here we were, a lot of those clients were getting rid of their liabilities, basically, and having their tax liabilities at that time. Because a lot of them had second mortgages that wouldn't, go away in basically, they would get their 1099s from their second mortgages, right? So I saw them throughout this process, and some of the questions that I've got a million questions, so we have to come back. But let me ask you from the most heartbreaking, because that's what I remember the most, and to the least, I suppose. The most heartbreaking for me was an aged woman, elderly woman, with her husband in a bed, in one of those hospital beds in their home, about to be kicked off because they owed real estate taxes. She had no clue that there is something called the Cook County Indemnity Fund. There's a whole plethora of lawyers who do that for a living. At least she could have had some time, some breathing room to keep her going. Can you please tell me what that is and what we pay into real estate taxes? Because I'm not the proponent of saying don't pay real estate taxes at all.
See, and that becomes a problem, because how far especially do we go to as we started this discussion on people that can't pay or home ownership is, you have to keep it up. So those type of funds are becoming more and more prevalent as they push that. See, you said something earlier, and I want to go back. I remember one time I was doing my own real estate taxes, and it's so complex, and I've had some very complex zoning cases, antitrust cases, admiralty law, that and I'm looking at this whole thing, but I went in with my own, and I went in on an open space, so the open space was entitled to no taxes, and went in there. They call the cases together, and the commissioner then says, "Oh, sure, of course, zero." And here's my home. "Oh, of course, zero taxes." Now, I did not want to embarrass him in front of everybody, but I knew where his clerk was, and I went over to the clerk and I said, "I just want to pay what everybody else is paying on my block, and equal with." And she said, "Oh, okay, I'll get back to you on it," and did what needed to be done then. I mean, I really worry about our whole system when they don't even know what they're doing at this point. And we have 18 attorneys in the state's attorney's office, which I am running for state's attorney in this November 5th election, but from my discussions with the people over there, we need more people because everything flows into them. And they have to sometimes sue on people who aren't paying their taxes, too. One other thing I want to tell you, I heard it during, we'll say, the recession, and I was involved as the alderman. I had the South Loop and West Loop was built very rapidly.
That's when I helped your campaign.
All right.
A very small part.
Mm-hmm. Well, every small part counts. I heard it over and over again about people dropping their keys and walking away from the homes.
I represented a whole bunch of them.
So,
through
and
bankruptcies.
And we had a whole huge number of colleges that came into the area. We have 17 universities, 75,000 students, probably more now, that live in those areas. So we built a lot of condos. Who bought the condos? The parent, because the kid was going to be there for 4 years, and saw how the market was going up and up no matter what, and so they figured, I'm going to put my kid in a condo, let him or her stay there, and then move on. So what happened was everything collapsed. We had thousands in the South Loop and West Loop every year that went in foreclosure of some sort, and because the parents used all their equity lines on it. Now I am, and again, I heard it then about people dropping their keys and walking away from their homes after 10 and 15 and 20 years. I'm hearing it again now. That people are saying, I can't stay here, I have to leave, and I'm thinking about just going. I said, you got to consult somebody. Let's look at what you have. Maybe you're entitled to more exemptions. Maybe you're entitled to ways to deal with this problem, and we can go forward from there.
So that brings another question for me in terms of real estate taxes, because today it is, after all, real estate taxes. Let me ask you this. And I know this only because I've been in this industry in a way, one way or the other. There are two kinds of real estate appeals that you could do, I believe. One is, or let me rephrase. I don't want to use the word appeal, because I know in the real estate world that there's so many words, at least in the appeal world, there's so many words that float around. You have two ways to do it. There's something called the appeal, and then there's something called the objection, rate objection, and then valuation ad valorem, as we call it in the legal world.
That is why I have a tax attorney doing my own home. So, because it does become complex. and how you make your appeal, how you who generates it all the way through. I mean, I've heard of cases that, I go on and on right now, and maybe you overpaid here, how you get your objection heard, how you get it, some monies back, if at all possible, after the payments have been made. So, I mean, we have such a complicated system. When I do come in to office, and I expect that I'll be elected on November 5th, that I'm going to put together, and yes, we've had one panel after another, one discussion after another, but put together the experts and say, this is what we need to do, and get it passed, and get things to make it easy for the citizens of this county to, one, pay their taxes and understand how their taxes are being utilized.
The reason I ask you that is because some of my clients ask me, they say, I would like to appeal. How do I start? And as an attorney, I said, well, here's a number. Here's my tax attorney. Here's an attorney that I recommend. And a lot of times they'll go there and they'll come back. And they'll ask me, hey, do you have somebody else? And I just got tired of, running into that loop of sending them to other attorneys. So I started trying to figure it out myself. And that's the first time I figured out that there's 2 bites at the apple.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And there are other ways too. And that's, again, coming...
and we're lawyers, aren't we? And
yes.
you're
yes.
not just any lawyer, right?
Right.
I mean,
I've handled some of the more complex. My cases in the past have changed the laws across this country, how police tactics in this city.
I'm not trying to measure up to you in any way, shape, or form, but I have a master's in law. And I've not reached, not even close to where you have. I do have a master's in law, and I don't understand them. I didn't understand them. I give up.
That's why it's a cottage industry, and only for the few. And one problem that we all see is when you've been reassessed in your neighborhood, how many notices do you get from lawyers in this, or even individuals? Because at the first level, anybody can help you through the tax.
Actually, a lot of appraisers do it. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite appraiser, who I use all the time on my as an expert witness, he says, "Well, Laxmi, if you want them appraised, just send them to me. I'll take care of them."
Right. So that becomes, like I said, it's a cottage. And if he can't do it on the first step, and if he's not an attorney, then they find his friend or people that they trust to move it on up through the system. Yes. Yeah.
So how do you think you can, or what do you think are ways to disrupt that? Or because those are all added costs, unnecessary added costs,
and people
don't know that,
and people are paying a third of whatever they just saved on their taxes when they thought they could do it on their own. And again, I think we have to change the whole system. We have to look at other jurisdictions, what they're doing, use the best practices, and really, abolish the way we're doing it. And there'll be a lot of people looking for a different type of work then, but they're all qualified somewhere else. But this is way too complex in a sense, and we need to do it if we're going to save Cook County.
Especially with when one of the things that always gets me going is when there are hidden costs that nobody knows about. Nobody has the time to fight them. And some of the biggest costs that I have seen that pretty much get sucked through the black hole of money going wasted is property tax that is levied upon commercial properties.
Well, that is the problem, and that's why the whole system was rigged to see that, because everybody saw I want to do the Sears Tower. I want to do this. I want to do the post office. And if I get the post office, I can get all this money. I think it was referred to as the big tuna, because millions of dollars would have been generated on a fee of using some elementary items, and then, especially since it was all vacant, and then coming back and saying, here, I'm the politician, and you guys, we hire you. So.
And if it kind of gets into the system where the commercial people pay the corrupt. I hate to put it that way, but they are corrupt.
They are.
They're corrupt individuals, and then they're back in power, and then they're doing the same. They hire the same law firms, and it just perpetuates, going on and on and on. Meanwhile, people that are not in that system are paying for the cost of it, scratching our heads, wondering where our taxes are going, because clearly we do not have the education that we need to have. Clearly we do not have the parks or the amenities that we should be having. Where is the money going?
Well, that becomes the issue, and some of the other people on my panel discussion go through all of that, and I think our next one is the beginning of October, but we have a series of them all set up in the next few weeks before the election.
So you have a plan, which I love. Bob, it has been a pleasure. I have had an absolute incredible experience understanding about the real estate taxation. I have to ask you to come back at your next available time, because we have not even scratched the surface.
No, we haven't. So.
And I didn't even start with. I just gave you my most heartrending client story. I have a whole basket full of them. So I would really be appreciative if you could come back.
I will. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us, Bob. And welcome again to Eat and Drink Real Estate Podcast. This is your Mondays with Laxmi host, Laxmi Sarathy.